Hello guys and boys, it's Mr. Dougal here with your maths video for today, Thursday the 21st of January. So what have we done so far this week? On Monday we looked at our multiplications, our calculations. On Tuesday we started to look at dividing by sharing things. Yesterday we looked at continuing on with our sharing, and we introduced the sign as well, the divide sign. Now today, Thursday, we're going to look at something called grouping. Okay, so a slightly different method for today. But before we do that, let's think about actually what dividing means. So when we divide something, it means we have an amount and we split it up into different groups. Okay, what do those groups need to be? They need to be equal. Hopefully you've said equal. We want equal groups, and one way of making sure that those groups were equal was by sharing, which is what we did on Tuesday and what we did yesterday. Okay, so where we go, so let's say we've got 6 dots, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there. We share them out one at a time, so we make sure that those groups are equal. So that was sharing. Okay, let's demonstrate that again with the pairs. So we're looking at the question, 10 divided by 2. 10 divided by 2. Remember, that's the divide sign. And we remember that divide means splitting up, because if we blow it up a little bit, we can see the dots in the sign are split up, aren't they? The lines in the middle and the dots are split up. So that's how we can remind ourselves that that sign means that we are splitting something up. We've got 10 and we're splitting it up into 2 groups. Okay? And that's what it would look like if we were sharing. Okay? So let's move that back over there. If we were doing that with our pairs, on the left here, 10 divided by 2, we've got 10 pairs, we're going to put them into 2 equal groups, so I'll get my 2 equal groups ready. Okay, and we're going to share them out. One for you, 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 one for you. Okay, I've shared them out. And that makes sure that those groups are equal. So how many do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. Good stuff. So 10 divided into 2 groups equals 5 in each group. Okay? So that's how we could answer that question by sharing. Now today, as I said, we're going to move on to grouping. Now grouping is a little bit different. Let's try and get those best listening ears on, because there's not loads of difference, but it's kind of the words that I'm using and the things that we're doing that make it just a little bit different. Okay. So with sharing, that 2 in the question told us how many groups there were. So I drew my big light blue groups. And then I shared out, okay, to see how many would be in each group. I didn't know how many would be in each group to start with. Okay, so we had let's rub that out. For sharing, we knew the number of groups. Tick. We didn't know how many would be in each. Question mark. Okay, so we knew we had 10. We divided it into 2 groups. So that was where we had the number of groups. We knew that. But then we didn't know how many would be in each until we were finished. Over with grouping on the other side, the different way of doing it, okay, the different way of doing it, we do know how many are going to be in each, because we're going to put them into groups of 2. Not 2 groups, but groups of 2. But then we don't know the number of groups that we're going to be able to make. So it's like they swap round. So with sharing, we knew how many groups there would be. There was 2. And we didn't know how many would be in each until the end, until we shared them. With grouping, we do know how many is going to be in each. We're going to put 2 in each group, but we don't know how many groups we're going to end up with. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my 10 pairs, and I'm going to put them into groups of 2. So I am deciding, or I'm setting, I know how many are going to be in each group, and I need to see by the end how many groups I have. Okay, so there's 1 group of 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2, 4 groups of 2, 5 groups of 2. And you notice I didn't do any moving of anything. I wasn't sharing anything out there, was I? I didn't move the pairs like I did over here. I put them into groups because I knew there needed to be 2 in each group. I just didn't know how many groups there would be at the end. How many groups are there? Let's check. There's 1 group, there's 2 groups, there's 3 groups, there's 4 groups, there's 5 groups. 10 divided into groups of 2 equals 5. And when over here we did 10 divided into 2 groups, there was 5 in each. So we end up with the same answer, girls and boys. It's just 2 different ways of doing it. Okay, we can either share over here and put 1 in each group until we've got none left, or over here with grouping, we can put them into groups of that number in the question, so 2, and then see at the end how many groups we have. Okay, and you can see by the pictures, I think, the pictures demonstrate the different methods. There we had 2 groups, we ended up with 5 in each. Here, sorry. Here we had groups of 2 and we ended up with 5 groups. So 2 in each and 5 groups. 5 in each, 2 groups. So it's like those a bit like when we did our multiplication, those values, have swapped over. Okay? So we're going to think about our grouping today. Okay, this one. Because we've looked at sharing for a couple of days, now we're going to look at grouping. Making groups, we know how many are going to be in each, and then we find out how many full groups there are at the end. Okay? Right, let's look at this one then. So similar kind of thing. So, sometimes the objects might not always be close together like my pairs were there. So I might have to move them to do some grouping. Okay? So the question says at the top here, how many equal groups of 2 can you make with the socks? So we know that in each group there's going to be 2. It's groups of 2. But we don't know how many groups we can make. But we can do that by moving the socks around. Okay, so groups of 2. Let's put 2's together. Right, there's 2. It's a pair of socks. There's 2. It's a pair of socks. There's 2. That's a pair of socks. There's 2. That's a pair of socks. There's 2. Another pair of socks. And there's 2. Pair of socks. So we started with 12 socks. We divided them into groups of 2. The question is, how many groups do we have now? And there's our groups. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups. So 12 socks divided into groups of 2 gives us 6. So I didn't do any sharing. Okay, I didn't set up my bubble groups first and then share them out one by one, did I? Because I knew there needed to be 2 in each group. I put them into groups of 2. It's like saying that really, how many groups of 2 are in 12? Okay, which again links to our times tables and counting up in 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, sorry. Okay, so how many 2s are in 12? So we've not shared anything, we've grouped them. Right, that's a group, that's a group, that's a group, that's a group. So we can do a similar thing. The question might ask us to group them in different ways. Okay, so we've got our 20 cubes, and it says complete the sentences. I can make something equal groups of 2. Okay, these are nice and friendly, they're close together. So how many groups of 2 can I make? Let's have a look. There's a 2, 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 there's 2, there's 2, there's 2, there's 2. How many groups of 2 do we have? Let's check. 1 group there, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 6 groups, 7 groups, 8 groups, 9 groups, 10 groups. 10 groups of 2. I can make 10 equal groups of 2. Because in 20, there are 10 2s, 10 groups of 2. Okay? So you can move that out. Magic. Next question. I can make blank equal groups of 5. How many groups of 5 can I make? Now this might be better. Well, it either way really depends how you feel. You could either make groups of 5 doing this, and then that is a 5, and that is a 5, and that is a 5. So we can see that we have 1 group of 5, 2 groups of 5, 3 groups of 5, 4 groups of 5. We have 4 groups of 5. Or if you wanted to move them around to see them a little bit more clearly, you could do, right, I'm going to put 5 over here as a group of 5. This is grouping. There's a group of 5. I'm going to put a group of 5 over here. That's a group. A group down here. It's a group of 5. Being careful to make sure that there's 5 in each group. And then we see how many groups there are. There's 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. Yeah, we've done exactly the same thing, just I've moved them about a little bit just to make them a little bit more clear. How many groups did we end up with? Well, we ended up with 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups. 5 groups. Start that again. Let's go back. It's my colour changing pen that made it go a bit wrong there. Apologies, boys and girls. So how many groups do we have? 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. Okay, just like I put in my answer before when I grouped them as well. Okay, and we can also think about last question. I can make something equal groups of 10. Oh, so we need equal groups of 10. Right, now I know, using my maths knowledge, I know that's 5. And if that's 5, 5 add 5 is 10. So if I put them together, that should be a group of 10. And I know if I put, that's a 5, and that's a 5, put them together, that should be a 10. Perfect. So we've got, that's a 10, that's a 10. How many groups do we have? Well, we have 1 group of 10, 2 groups of 10. So I can put 2 groups of 10. So with 20 cubes, I can make 10 groups of 2, 4 groups of 5, 2 groups of 10. Notice how this one and this one are linked. 10 groups of 2, 2 groups of 10. A bit like when we did our multiplication, remember? When the numbers can be swapped around and still give the same total. Okay, so we're grouping. We know how many is going to be in each group, and we just have to make them and then find out at the end how many groups we have. Okay. Finally, a little bit of problem solving for you. I am thinking of a number between 20 and 30. So somewhere between 20 and 30. I'm thinking about how I see this in my head. My number line. So somewhere between 20 and 30. Somewhere here. I can only make equal groups of 5. What must my number be? So this is where I've talked about linking this to our times tables and to counting up in whatever number you are given. So I can only make equal groups of 5. So a number that I would count up in 5s, when I count up in 5s, I would say it, that's in between 20 and 30. Now you might be thinking, oh, I don't know, 23 perhaps. In which case, we could try it. So 1, 2, actually, sorry, equal groups of 5. So we have there, look, 5, groups of 5, remember, 10, 20, sorry, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now what's the problem there, girls and boys? Anyone spotted? What's the problem? Let's have a look. We've got 5 in there, 5 in there, 5 in there, 5 in there, but then I added 3 for 23, and there wasn't 5 in there, was there? There's only 3. So the groups aren't equal, so that wouldn't work. So we couldn't use 23, so we need to use a number that would give us equal groups of 5. So a number that when we're counting up in our 5s, we would say, or a number that's in our 5 times tables. In between 20 and 30, anyone any ideas? And remember, we've got to be careful with that word between 20 and 30. It doesn't say that we can use 20 or 30. It says between it. So in between, somewhere in the middle. Anyone got it? I think I've got it. A number that we bang in the middle on our number line. 25. Let's try it. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 5 in there, 5 in there, 5 in there, 5 in there, 5 in there. There we go. I'm thinking of a number between 20 and 30. I can only make equal groups of 5. What must my number be? 25. We split 25 up into groups of 5, and they were all equal groups of 5. There's 5 groups of 5. Lots of 5s involved. So if you can start to make those links between counting up in 2s, 3s, 5s and 10s and our times tables, it will really, really, really help you when you start to think about dividing. Okay? Because, I'll give you another example, just a bit of an extra. If we're thinking about, you had a bit of this when you were doing your sharing. If we had the choice of these two questions, and I think some people had this. So either 19 divided by 2 or 18 divided by 2. If you can get to the point where you say, well, 19 divided by 2 would give us unequal groups, because 19 is not in the 2 times tables. But 18 divided by 2 would give us equal groups, because 18 is in the 2 times tables. I'd say 18 if I was counting up in 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. There we go. So that must give us equal groups of 2, because we're adding on 2 each time, aren't we? Okay. Similarly, you could say, again, different numbers, not just 2s. Let's rub that out. You could do it with our 10s. So 70 divided into groups of 10, or 75 divided into groups of 10. Which one would give us equal groups? Well, we know that we would say 70 if we were doing our 10 times tables, wouldn't we? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So that would give us equal groups, because it is in the 10 times tables. Is 75? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 20. No, there isn't, is there? We don't say 75. It doesn't have 0 ones, does it? It has 5. So that would be unequal groups. We couldn't divide it by 10 equally because it's not in the 10 times table. So if you can start to make those links, it will really, really help, girls and boys. I know you did really well with our times tables and multiplying and counting up in numbers, so I'm hoping there'll be a few of us who start to do that. Okay? Hope that's helped, girls and boys, with our grouping. Again, please feel free to try and pause the video when you need it. Remember the difference between the grouping and the sharing. We're looking at grouping today. Okay, so where we know how many is going to be in each group, up here, and then we find out how many groups there are at the end, like there was 5 groups in the end up there. Okay, we're not doing it. Moving on from sharing a little bit. Okay, hope that helps, girls and boys. Any questions, as always, please get in touch. And thanks for listening.